Imagine carrying invisible wounds from your past that silently dictate your present, shaping your behaviors, fueling addictions, and even impacting your physical health. What if the so-called normal life around us is actually a distorted landscape that breeds suffering rather than healing? In this podcast episode, Dr. Gabor Maté, a world-renowned physician and trauma expert, unveils the hidden connections between trauma, addiction, and chronic illness, challenging everything we think we know about health and healing. Dr. Maté begins by dismantling the notion of what society labels as normal, explaining that many behaviors we accept as ordinary responses are actually adaptations to an abnormal cultural environment. The addictions that people develop, he argues, are not personal failings or moral flaws, but rather natural responses to deeply toxic circumstances. Are addictions really choices, or could they be cries for survival from wounded souls? He is unequivocal in his definition of addiction, clarifying that there is no such thing as a healthy addiction. Addiction, by its nature, enslaves the individual to cravings for short-term relief, despite long-term harm, and an inability to relinquish the addictive behavior. The very word addiction originates from the Latin addictus, meaning slavery, a poignant metaphor for how addictions imprison free will. Dr. Maté shares his own experience battling compulsive behaviors, such as workaholism and shopping addictions, illustrating the powerful hold addiction can have, even on a successful physician. Addiction thus emerges not as a disease or a choice, but as an attempt to solve or numb unresolved pain, trauma that often traces back to childhood. Doesn't that shift the narrative from stigma to empathy? Isn't it compelling to see addiction as a symptom of a person's struggle to survive a harsh inner landscape? Central to Dr. Maté's work is the understanding that trauma isn't only about dramatic events. It's about the ways those events wound us emotionally and physiologically, especially when our pain goes unseen or unacknowledged. Trauma is a wound, a Greek origin of the word that reflects how damage permeates our entire being. A child who experiences neglect, fear, or emotional disconnection becomes trapped in that trauma, unable to develop a secure foundation for self-regulation and healthy relationships. The behaviors and addictions they develop are, in fact, survival strategies. Dr. Maté shares a personal narrative that is both heart-wrenching and illuminating. His own early life, marked by war, separation, and profound psychological strain. His diagnosis of ADHD and depression decades later is reframed as an outcome of coping mechanisms forged in infancy rather than isolated medical conditions. Could it be that many mental health diagnoses are better understood as adaptations rather than fixed diseases? One of the most startling revelations in this discussion is how Western medicine, despite its incredible advances, often ignores the crucial link between mind and body. Specialists may treat symptoms, rashes, seizures, arthritis, or multiple sclerosis, without ever asking about the patient's emotional or psychological stressors. The very evidence from modern science, backed by thousands of studies, shows that emotions, trauma, and relationships significantly influence the physical onset and course of illness. Dr. Maté points to historical medical figures who recognized this, such as the 19th century physicians who linked rheumatoid arthritis and multiple sclerosis to chronic stress and grief. Yet the modern, evidence-based medicine approach remains curiously narrow, often overlooking the role of emotional trauma in disease processes. By integrating indigenous wisdom, where community and environment are part of the healing process, Dr. Maté calls for a medicine that recognizes the individual as inseparable from their social and emotional context. If your body is inflamed, might it also be your soul that needs attention? Healing trauma is rarely a solo journey. Though some fortunate individuals may experience sudden spiritual awakenings or deep inner peace, most require connection, guidance, and support. Dr. Maté stresses the importance of breaking the silence and stigma. What you bring out of yourself will save you, as an ancient gospel says. But why is facing trauma so daunting? Fear plays a massive role. Cultural conditioning tells many, especially men, to suck it up, suppress emotions, and present rigid masks to the world. These masks, whether sexual, materialistic, or aggressive, arise from identities shaped to survive pain, but which eventually limit authentic growth. How many of us are still slaves to identities built from childhood wounds? The reluctance to face inner pain is deepened by shame and a lack of self-compassion. Trauma often leads to self-blame. If bad things happen to me, I must be bad. Yet Dr. Maté insists on a radical reframing. The real genius is in the nervous system's attempts to protect us, whether by freezing during abuse or tuning out in neglect. Trauma is often inherited across generations, not because of destiny, but through repeated patterns of emotional disconnection and repression. Dr. Maté uses vivid examples from indigenous cultures, contrasting their nurturing childrearing with the isolation and stress many face today. How can we provide the right conditions, nourishment, connection, and emotional safety to foster natural growth towards self-regulation and healthy relationships? Part of the answer lies in vulnerability, acknowledgement, and the courage to dismantle false identities. The path from addiction, illness, or emotional trauma toward peace demands bravery, patience, and community support. It also requires learning to stay present with difficult emotions instead of burying them, a skill rarely taught but essential for healing. Toward the end, Dr. Maté reflects on the essence of greatness. It is not about achievement or external validation, but the willingness to discover and express one's best qualities authentically in the world. Isn't that a powerful invitation to move beyond survival and into flourishing, fueled by self-forgiveness, compassion, and genuine connection?